Hey everybody, it's Matt the Dice Chucker, joined by Jen, the board game librarian. Today we're going to be taking a look at Trekking Through History. This is designed by Charlie Bink and published by, is it World History Games?
Underdog Games.
Underdog Games. So, let's head down to the table to take a look at how it plays, and we'll be right back. Okay, so here we are. The game is set up for 2 players. And what you have here are a number of cards that you're going to be able to choose from. Yes, this is my microphone. Good for you for noticing. The supply of tokens and resources. We have the upcoming decks over here, and we have the itineraries up there along with something to hold your crystals. Now, on your turn, you have this nifty little turn reference card. You can choose a card from the row. What you are trying to do is create large sets of cards. I'm going to move the camera over here. Create large sets of cards. The more cards you have in your timeline, the more points you're going to get. What I mean by that is, on your turn, sorry for making everyone sick, you're going to choose a card from here, and you're going to take it, and you'll pay in time, and then you'll get that bonus along with the bonus down there, and those are tokens. So let's say I did pick the 347 BCE card, and I put it in front of me. And what I'm doing from that point forward is I'm trying to get cards moving in the right timeline. So I started there at 347 BCE. I want cards after that to fill it in. All right. So also you're taking the tokens here. Now let's say this was green, and they have 2 tokens. What they're going to do is they're going to go to their itinerary and they're going to fill it in. Like that. All right. Now, if it ever hits a spot that has points on it, you'll just advance on the point track. And if you ever hit a spot that has crystals on it, you will take a crystal and put it into there. If you ever hit a spot that is linked like that, only when you get all 3 of those do you get the points or the resource of that card. Sorry, of that part of your itinerary. This then moves over. And then you have the nifty little turn clock here. So it looks like this. And then that card was 2 time. All right. And then whoever's furthest behind in the clock is the next to go. You'll notice that let me get this out of the way a little bit. The more expensive the card, the more resources you're going to get. And that's dependent on what you want to accomplish in your itinerary. As soon as your piece moves around the clock completely, your time in the round is done, and everyone else is going to be picking it up and moving along. If you landed exactly on the noon spot, you'll get 3 points for being punctual. So, you'll notice that each of these has a bonus on the board. You can pull the card from the top of the deck, but you'll notice you don't get a bonus down here for it. It's just the resources on the card. If ever there is a moment, let's see here. Let's say I did this, because this is following the timeline. And then for some reason I did this. And then I did this. I can choose to collapse my timeline and start over. I'll put this to the side. I know that a set of 4 is going to give me 4 points from the board over here. And that's how you reset. There's also the crystals that you get. So each crystal you spend subtracts an hour from the cost. But there's always, the card always costs at least 1 hour. So you can't go, I'm going to check on that. But anyway, yeah, it decreases the cost. I'll put right here whether or not you still have to pay 1 hour for a card. Then, if you can't buy anything or don't want to buy anything, you can visit one of your ancestors instead, and you'll get a wild. But it does cost 3 time to do that. And that will just fit somewhere with the question mark anywhere in your timeline. Then, once the day is done, you take out all these cards, you refill from there. You also get new itineraries. You've been given a hand at the beginning of the game, and you're going to choose out of a number of itineraries that you might have, and then you are going to start the next day. And at the end of 3 days, whoever has the most points is the winner. I'm just going to check now on that crystal thing, because I don't want somebody to at me in the comments unless the designer. The designer is always allowed to at me. All right. Yes, you can spend multiple crystals in a turn, but may not make anything cost less than 1 hour. So, a pretty simple game. We have all the tokens here. Like I said, they do slide down. I was just doing that for example. And of course, we're going to mention this in review, but there's some really neat stuff on the cards. And yeah, that's pretty much it for Trekking Through History. I do believe that final scoring for each crystal you didn't use, you get a point. And then, of course, your points gained during the game from the itineraries, along with your sets that you've built from your timelines. And that's it. And we're back. So, first things first, I usually don't put this up there, but it is 2 to 4 players. Solo mode if you did the Kickstarter, and I think they're going to make that readily available to more people. And about 30 to 60 minutes, and that seems about right. So, talk to us, Jen, about what your thoughts are on Trekking Through History.
Since I'm holding the box cover up, I hadn't noticed this before, and perhaps you had, Matt. There's a quote on the inside, even the inside of the box is fancied up. It says, "History is not a burden on the memory, but an illumination of the soul," by Lord Acton. So, years ago, we had done we did longer form videos. Longer form video on trekking the national parks.
I remember that.
Where Matt and I were wandering through a park and talking about trekking the national parks, which is still one of the most popular games at my library. I think the theme, the fact that it's pretty easy to play, easy rule set, nice chunky pieces, very attractive looking.
Shows a lot with Ticket to Ride as well, which I think is attractive to some people.
Yes. In between that, we've done Trekking the World. And
we have not done Trekking the World.
They have done.
Oh, they have done. Okay.
Trekking the World, and now this is their most recent game that has fulfilled through Kickstarter. So I saw this game because I went on Underdog's website to look at her story to see if that was available yet, and we'll hold tight. There'll be a review of that coming soon. But I came across this, and I don't know, it was the cover maybe that attracted me?
Cover's very dynamic.
The fact that it is a history game, and for folks who don't know, I have a bachelor's in history, and Matt has a master's in military history, so history is very big in our house. So, and again, Underdog always has easy to learn, easy to play games, and I think that is very appealing. So, thank you to Underdog Games for sending this to us. I've said a lot. Why don't you talk, Matt? That was kind of the history of how we encountered this game.
So, I really think this game is neat for a few reasons. There's the stigma that historical games are war games, and that's not always the case. Trekking Through History has battles on the cards you're collecting, but you are not actually actively fighting in those battles. You're just, you're traveling through time and seeing these things. And some of the events in this game, I mean, you rarely hear about nowadays. And so to me, it was very nice to see them highlighted. And one other thing I want to say is this sheet right here is very helpful for people who, because the BCEs go backwards, right? Right. And some people are going to have some trouble with that, so this was very helpful. Components are great. I love the neoprene mat. We have not tried the time warp yet. We will. And just all the mechanics clicked into place. So even I thought this was going to be confusing at first, but it's not. It really is a nice little thing there. So yeah, I think this is one of the more important games to come out this year, and that's going to be a highlight for a few games this year. We've already seen one on the channel most recently that I consider to be one of the more important games that came out this year.
I think, so if you're thinking to yourself, what's making this game different than something like Timeline, it is those kind of resource track
the itineraries.
Yeah, thank you, that Matt held up. So that's one.
You're using time as the resource. All right, that's another.
But I'd also say this game, Matt touched on it briefly, the fact that it covers so much history, and I'm not talking Eurocentric
Western
history,
Civ.
Western Civ history. We're talking about history from every continent, many peoples, rich, diverse, very so many events where ladies are featured, and just again, feel like I know a bit about history, but so many cards were just over and over again. Oh, I didn't know this. Oh, I didn't know this. And to me, those are the opportunities that when people say about, board games teaching you something, this is an amazing opportunity for folks. It could be used in the classroom, if you are homeschooling, if you are just kind of looking to educate yourself on more history. Matt's pulled out a couple of them, but the title of the event, the date, amazing artwork, and then on the back.
So yeah, for example, it's got some nods to gaming here, which is throw dice with Girolamo Cardano. I don't know about this. Flip it around. There's the information. Perfect. I think historical games have kind of gotten a bad rap over the past few years because they tend to be... The rules tend to be too much for some people.
Yes.
And there are some games out there that they've got these really cool themes, and they're not based on warfare. And yet have a hard time sticking the landing because there's so many rules. And the other thing historical games kind of get lumped into is, does this feel scripted? For certain events in time, you feel like the game is pushing you. I remember the Britannia game. While it had an engaging gameplay and it had a great history in the world of gaming, it seemed to me that one person was always destined to win because the game would say, now this player takes this faction out and places it there, because that's historically in the era when they showed up. You have to really toe the line with scripted versus a game itself. Black Orchestra is a great example of a game that's not really scripted. Yeah. It has the timeline of what was going on, but the challenges of overcoming the consistent battering of what's happening to you. It's not scripted at all.
No, just like books, fictional books, especially historical fiction books, this is an opportunity for folks, if they are particularly intrigued by something, that they can go and then research it, read more books on it, find a documentary, talk about it with your friends and family, what you learned. And that's, to me, is why this is a really important game. And I think the fact that it is so accessible, that it we could, this I feel like we could teach your parents, and that you could play it with many ages, that I think that's what makes this a home run, really. Mm-hmm. We played, and then did we play again right away?
Yeah, we did.
Yeah.
We just reset it up. There's also so many events. I think what we did is we took the events from the days and we just put them on the bottom of the deck for that day and just got the new ones out there. So we could see everything the game offered.
Yeah, at 2 players at least. And, this game would have been fine with lesser components, but...
Components help.
Yeah, the components help too. And the tray system is really easy. The fact that the component tray is useful, you just pull that out.
And I know this is the tiniest thing, but the player pieces for the time, the fact that you can actually firmly stack them on top of each other without them falling over is a plus.
I feel like a lot of thought and care was put into it. The mat is actually useful. You do need the mat.
It could have been a board, but those cards slide much easier on a mat.
They do, and we do not have the Kickstarter version, I don't think. We have the retail. So this is the retail version, too. This is not like I can't imagine what's in the Kickstarter version. So, and it was engaging. I think
I wouldn't even call this a filler.
No.
No.
No,
It's a light game, but it's not a filler.
It's a light game that, to me, especially at 2 players, has so much replayability. I can't imagine this leaving our collection anytime soon. Which is great.
So you want to give it a number?
This is always the part where Jen is so notoriously stingy. People are probably like, oh, does she
You like it
actually
that much
you
and it
like
gets a
that
6?
much? Again, nothing gets a 10, folks. Nothing. Very few things get a 9. So
I recently gave it 10.
You did. I give it an 8. That's great. That's great
that's
for
generous.
a Jen. That's a
That's
Jen.
generous.
That's a Jen. I really like it. That it's quite addicting, this game. So, context.
I would give it more around the same, maybe an 8.25 because I see its importance. You know, like I said, I feel bad because there was recently, some comments made that we've had enough about games about history. Let's do something else. But are we playing the wrong games about history? Are we playing the scripted games about history? Are we only playing the games about history that are war games? And war games have their place. But we need more games about historical events and things like this.
That are not Western Civ related. I think there's a wealth of historical events and cultures that have not been tapped into, where we can have amazing games like this that embrace those histories and cultures. That there probably is some fatigue over, as an example, games about Normandy or games about World War II.
There's a lot.
And there's a lot.
I think Shut Up and Sit Down mentioned when they covered Undaunted that it was a great game, but do we need another game about Normandy? And thankfully they've added so much to that system already.
And we love Undaunted Normandy. I'm not knocking it. What I love in particular about that is that it's one of the most accessible war games out there. And that it's a great 2-player game.
But we're off topic now.
We are off topic.
That's okay.
So swinging back around, if you have the opportunity to pick this up, I think we both highly recommend it.
Yeah. Once again, because there's always going to be someone in the comments, make sure that you have a chance to try it. It is very much like Century. Mm-hmm. You don't have a hand of cards, but it's very much like Century in its standard mechanics. But I think you're really going to have a lot of good play sessions with this.
I agree.
Mm-hmm.
I agree.
All right, folks. One thing I want to say. On our recent Lacrimosa review, 95% of you are not subscribed, so please consider subscribing to the channel. Thanks, everybody. We'll see you next time.